Hi everyone. In today's video, we're going to talk about nested repeating items. So this is the scenario where you have a repeating item within a broader repeating item. In this example, we're going to use children and grandchildren just to show you, and then I'm going to relate it to something a little bit more fun. So we have the question here, do you have any children? Somebody can say yes or no. Let's go ahead and say yes. And then we can say, what is your child's name? I'm going to say Violet. And then we can say continue. Does Violet have any children? Yes or no. So this is the nested repeating item here, which is the Violet's children's name, for example. So we can say yes or no. I'm going to say yes. So Violet's children are, what is Violet's child's name? So we can say Jennifer and Joe. Continue. Then we can review and add any more if we'd like to. Do you have any more children? So this is a setting here in the back where we can ask a continuation question because we haven't collected all of the items on a single page. So you can say, do you have any more children? Yes or no. And then you could say yes. And my other one is John. Does John have any children? That's our question here. So that's also in settings. Does John have any children? And we can collect these on a single page. So you can see the difference there. Yes. And then John's children's names are, let's say, Aiden and Jackson. Let's go ahead and continue. Continue. Do you have any more children? Nope. And then we can just continue. And at the end, we're going to just have, this is just a kind of a test to just show you what it looks like. So we have my child Violet has the following children, Jennifer and Joe. My child John has the following children, Aiden and Jackson. So you can see how this looks on the back end here in the sort of Word template version of this is we have my child, and then in the middle here has the following children. And then the nested item comes here, which would be Jennifer and Joe and Aiden and Jackson, for example. And I'll show you how you can do this using the document tagger from Gavel. So let's go ahead and start this from the beginning. And we're going to use a little bit of a fun example of who are your favorite artists or musicians. So we're going to go over to our dashboard in Gavel, and we're going to create a new workflow. I always recommend that you have a testing environment workflow like we have here, where you're just testing one very specific thing to see how it works, to learn how to do something, or to troubleshoot something that you are having a problem with, trying to figure out the logic of something. And you can really isolate the problem so that you can just figure out your best workaround or way of dealing with that without having to mess up your entire workflow. So let's go ahead and call this one, since I already have a testing environment, I'm just going to call this one nested repeating item test so that I can know where to go back to it to delete it after this demonstration. So we always need a repeating item to have its own page. So we can call this favorite artists. And we're going to add a question. You can see all the different question types here, and we're going to go for a repeating item, and we're going to give it a name. So we're going to call this favorite artist, and we can say artists. And whenever I create a new variable, I always like to track it on a master variable list that looks like this, so that I don't that I always reuse the same ones that appear in different workflows, so that I can use my data manager to push information from one workflow to another. So I like to just keep a little bit of track of what I'm using, so I can kind of just do a control find to see if I already have this, for example. Do I already have this or something like this, and I'll search through my list. So what we'll do is we're going to grab the name of this particular workflow, which I called it nested repeating item test. So I'm just going to drop that here and bold that. So this is how I do it. Obviously, everyone has their own style, but I think it makes sense to have a list where you have everything and you could look through it and just review all of your workflows and all of the variables you've used so that you don't create new ones when you already have ones that will suffice for what you're trying to do. So as I mentioned, that's really around pushing information from one workflow to another. So let's go back to our favorite artists. So we have our favorite artist. So we can say who who is your favorite artist? So, this could be, obviously artists can be interpreted a couple different ways, but, you can just say in this particular example, we're talking about musicians. So, who's your favorite artist? So you say like fave artist. So we're just giving it a text question type so that somebody can type in the name of the particular person. But if we wanted to, maybe we could do a combo box instead, or I think maybe a combo box would be nice just to show you what this looks like. So we can say Taylor Swift, and we can say Ed Sheeran, and then we can have it to where, since it's a combo box, somebody can write in their own answer. So what this would look like right now, if we don't do anything else, if we just save this and run this without any different settings as well, we have this favorite artist page, which says who is your favorite artist, and then you can choose from the drop down, or you can type in your own answer, and you can add another if you'd like to. So if we wanted to ask an initial question, we would go into settings, and we can say ask an initial question, and we can say something like, who do you have a favorite artist? We can collect items on a single page, or we can uncheck this and ask a continuation question, such as, do you have any more favorite artists? So you're seeing now the parallels between the questions so that you can see that this can apply in many different ways, and it doesn't have to look exactly like our first example here, where we had it about children, and it doesn't always have to be a text question, and it can be more interesting and more fun. So in this particular example, now we're gonna have this sort of initial question show. Let me just go ahead and get out of a couple of these tabs here. Let's go ahead and run this again. Do you have a favorite artist? Yes or no? Let's say yes. Now we're on this page, favorite artist. Who is your favorite artist? Taylor Swift or Ed Sheeran, or you can type in your own. And then we'll kind of go into this nested repeating item now, because not much will happen right at this point. And I'm going to show you how to do this in an output document as well. So for right now, what we want to do is next ask which of their song is your favorite. So say add another, and we're actually going to not put anything here or here yet, and we're going to go over to our question type, and we're going to find repeating item. This is our nested repeating item now. So by default, it's going to give you this one that says ordinal. And when it talks about ordinal numbers, that's in reference to things like first, second, third. So that can be a little bit confusing when you can't remember who you said first or second or third. And that's where this convention comes in to use this little bit of, you could say, code here, which is I'm going to just kind of relate this from this particular one. So I'm going to just copy paste this here, but it won't work because we don't have these variables and these item names. So what the convention here is, you have the item name here. So we want favorite artists to appear here. And then this little I within some straight brackets, and then the reference that you want here is the variable name. So we're going to replace child name with fave artist. So what the convention looks like is this $sign with two curly brackets around is just saying, please take the information from that was input in these places and put it here instead. And you can kind of apply this everywhere around your workflow, which is pretty great. So we have the item name here, and we have this little I a dot or period, and then you have favorite artist, which is the variable that we're referring to the input here. So we're going to take this part off because this is just a default of this. So it'd be first favorite artist, but we can change this and we can say, let's say song, best song. So we can say favorite artist, best song. So for example, this is the title of the page, is what's going to appear at the top of the page to kind of reference what we're talking about. So this would be, let's say, best fave artist, best song. So song or songs, let's say. Let's say we want to do a text question that asks which song of theirs is your favorite or is the best song that they have. I wanted to just point out that you can also have an instruction show up here first, for example, if you wanted to just give a little bit of context for the question. So you could even say something like, we love, and you can put this convention in here. We love artist's name too, or as well. And you can say, which of Taylor Swift, for example, songs do you think are the best? So that can give the person a little bit of context before you ask any questions. So let's go ahead and say, we're adding another question here, and we're going to use, this can be text, and we're going to say, you could even just say song or like best songs or whatever you want to say. Song name, and then you can say best song name. And we're gonna just drop this into our, so I was gonna just say too, one of the things that you'll notice here is actually that I want to have, so I have favorite artists, and that can be repeating item. And then you can say fave artists like this, just to be consistent here. And then we can put this item name here. And then you can say something like repeating item nested, just to kind of give yourself some context and framing of where this appears and what it's doing. And then we have best song name here. So that's a little bit of how I would do it. We could also have some settings here if we wanted to, where we ask an initial question. We can collect all of these items on a single page, which I think would look the best, but we can always change it if we wanted to. We can have a minimum number of items and a maximum number of items if we wanted to as well. So let's go ahead and save this, and let's just see what it looks like right now. Make sure everything's working as we expect. So do you have a favorite artist? Yes or no? I'm going to say yes. Who is your favorite artist? So you can say something like Taylor Swift, and then you can say continue. Taylor Swift's best songs. We love Taylor Swift too. Which of Taylor Swift's songs do you think are the best? Song name. So that's how that kind of flows here. And then, so I'm just going to choose one of her songs. Let's say Love Story, for example. And then let's maybe add one more. You Belong with Me. And then we'll just say you belong with me. So if you wanted it to be that this instruction block doesn't show every time, it depends on how you want it to look. You could make it to where you put the instruction underneath here instead of more of a, this is a header and then this is paragraph. If you wanted to, it just depends on what you want this flow to look like. So let's go ahead and continue. So we have this continuation question. Do you have any more favorite artists? So that is here. Do you have any more favorite artists? And this is appearing because we said we don't want to collect items on a single page. So we can say yes, and then we can say Ed Sheeran, for example. And then we love, so Ed Sheeran's best songs. We love Ed Sheeran too. Which of Ed Sheeran's songs do you think are the best? And then we can say, for example, perfect. And maybe that's it. We don't always have to have more than one. Do you have any more? We're going to say no, and then you can, and then we can say continue. So there's a couple of things here. One is that we want to customize the message here, and the other is that we want to skip the final review page. So if we go into our settings, we can go to customize messages, and we can say thank you, and then you can add anything else you wanted. But we also want to skip this final review page for the best user experience so the person doesn't have to click twice towards the end, because the each repeating item already has its own sort of review page, you could say. So I'm just going to refresh this, and you can see thank you has appeared now. So the next step is we're going to talk a little bit about the word add-in tagger that you can use in order to have this appear in an output document. So if we go ahead and open up a brand new Microsoft Word document, I'm just going to pause for a second to open up my tagger, which will show my API key. So this is a free Word add-in. So you can just get this from the Word add-in store just by coming from developer to add-ins to the store and then searching for Gavel. Excuse me for a sec. Let's just go ahead and look like this and then say add, and then you say continue, and that will load that in for you. And then you just need to create an API key from your dashboard. Just go to settings, API keys, and then give it a name such as word add-in, create a key, and then it will give you your code that you can, your unique code that you can then put into here. Now, if we go back, let's just kind of clear this up a little bit. So we've got our back end here. If we go into our nested repeating item test, we have to make sure we select our workflow from the drop-down menu here. We're going to be able to interact with this information. For example, under simple variables, you can select number of favorite artists. So you can say you have this many favorite artists. And then we can say something else, for example. And by the way, you can just see all the different ways that you can format this. So number, decimal, decimal commas, currency, word, first letter capital, lowercase, uppercase, or ordinal number. So right now we have it as a number like 0 or 1. And then you have sort of lowercase, uppercase options as well. You can also make it to where something shows or hides when a certain condition is true or false. So you have here, for example, number of favorite artists, or favorite artists is greater than or less than, and then you can say your different values, and you can kind of interact with this information in different ways. Same thing with show phrase when. You can choose number of favorite artists is greater than or less than or equal to a certain number, or favorite artist is a particular value, for example, and you can just insert that condition. So we can also just have a lot of different other options here. But for the sake of time, we're just going to kind of go into the repeating item itself here. So you can see this repeating item will show and you'll be able to toggle into it when you have a repeating item in that particular workflow. If you don't, it will kind of be grayed out in a way. So we have here, you have this many favorite artists, and then we're going to be able to insert some information here, including our repeating item fields here. And then you can see our initial question as well as our nested repeating item here. So we're going to go ahead and choose to format this as a list, for example. You can have multi-line lists, list commas, etc. You can even have it to where you generate multiple documents for each of the favorite artists, for example. So let's go ahead and say for this one, we're going to have them all be on the same one. And we're going to say insert repeating item field favorite artist, which is referring to this item name here, this broader item name. And then we're going to have the attributes to include be who is your favorite artist, which is your initial question here. So the input would come out here. So we have this kind of configuration here. And we can move this around. We don't have to be afraid to interact with it. Just make sure you are careful about your how you're placing each of these, that you don't cut off any of the end curly brackets, for example. So here you have number of favorite artists, and then we're going to say you, let's say your, let's say you like Taylor Swift, of her songs. Oh, well, we can say of, let's say, item favorite artist, of this person's favorite songs. I just put you like, let's say, Taylor Swift, and think Taylor Swift's best songs are, and then we're going to put in the nested repeating item information now. So we still have favorite artists as our chosen repeating item field, or repeating field. And then we can take off this who is your favorite artist, because we're going to choose this other one now, which is the repeating, nested repeating items item name, which is the one here, favorite artist, best song. Attributes of this to include our song name, and we can format that as a list or a multi-line list. I think I want to do a multi-line list. And let's say songs is or are, like that, so that you can account for one or more than one, for example. And then you can say insert field. And we can now see that we have this sort of opening tag for the broader repeating item and the ending tag for that. Then we have the opening tag for the nested repeating item and the closing tag for the nested repeating item, so that it's all nice and clean. I'm just going to fix up some of the spacing here. So if we go into paragraph, you can just make sure that your spacing is how you would like. I usually like to just have it as a single sort of spacing so that we can make sure all of our spacing works out, because what's going to happen is when we run this part is going to disappear and this line is going to get moved up to this line. So we don't want to have all these extra spaces that we don't need. And so when we look at this is going to say you have, let's say, 2 favorite artists. And then the first one's going to say you like Taylor Swift and think Taylor Swift's best songs is or are. And then you're going to have this information come up to this line, and it's going to say, love story. And then it's going to say, you belong with me. And then there's going to be more artists up here underneath that. So I'm going to just save this to my desktop as a nested repeating item test. And then we can give it a date, for example, April 4th, 2023, and then save that. So we're just playing with it right now, and we can always kind of pretty it up and make sure everything works after we give it a quick test, to make sure we like it. So let's go ahead and go to our output document, and we're going to upload this one. So we're going to look for April 4th nest repeating item test. We can give it a new name. So we can say favorite artists, and then save that. And now when we run this, we can run through it from the beginning just to kind of test it out. Do you have a favorite artist? Yes. Who is your favorite artist? You can choose from the list. You can start typing in and choose. Taylor Swift's best songs. We love Taylor Swift too. Which of Taylor Swift's songs do you think are the best? Love Story, and let's say You Belong With Me. Continue and continue. Do you have any more favorite artists? Yes. And we're going to choose, let's say Ed Sheeran. And then what are Ed Sheeran's best songs? Let's say Perfect. And then we can continue. Do you have any more? I'm going to say no. And then we're going to continue. Thank you. And favorite artists. So here you can see you have 2 favorite artists. You like Taylor Swift and think Taylor Swift's best songs is or are Love Story and You Belong With Me. You like Ed Sheeran and think Ed Sheeran's best songs is or are Perfect. So you can make this a little bit more interesting with like bolding or colors or pictures or whatever else, but you get the basic idea now of how you can interact with information such as repeating items and nested repeating items, and how to tag that into an output document. So I hope this was useful, and I will see you in the next video.